But as we are coming live here, I don't know if we officially have all the details. It sounds like we have at least the general framework of the NBA's new media mega deal that they are signing. Like I mentioned, $76 billion is what the NBA is looking to profit off of this deal with a number of different media companies, including Disney, NBC, and Amazon. So, you know, that making this $76 billion is quite the upgrade over their last media deal that they signed in 2014 that is going to be coming to an end after this upcoming season. That was worth $24 billion, so just about tripling their revenue coming out of this moving forward. The deal includes, like I mentioned, Disney, which is partners with ABC and ESPN, so kind of the typical front there, and then it includes NBC diving back into the world of NBA here. They have been on a little bit of a, you could call it 20-year hiatus, where they were the primary broadcaster for the NBA during the 90s and during the prime years of Michael Jordan. So they're getting back into the game here, and Amazon Prime, as we have seen them sort of pick up a number of different sports. We've seen them with Thursday Night Football the past few years of, enhancing their audience in that way. Kind of made sense that this was going to be a natural step for them. They have rights for the WNBA. We saw last night's game between the Chicago Sky and New York Liberty. That was exclusively streamed on Amazon Prime. So going a step further, Amazon is to add the NBA to their repertoire. We saw, they are also actually being listed as the primary streaming service for the NBA's in-season tournament that they just introduced this past year. And I would have to imagine that's why Amazon is paying as much money as they are, $1.8 billion. Now, keep in mind, that's $1.8 billion annually here. And they're paying $1 billion for Thursday Night Football. So I would have to imagine that the reason why they invested as much as they did into the NBA, considering the fact they're probably not going to be during the playoffs, is to get this in-season tournament, which is exactly what the NBA wants. And Charles Barkley, who we're going to be diving into him a little bit later as well, sort of alluded to the fact that the NBA is basically just fixating on making as much money as possible, which, it's reality with businesses, across the world, entertainment or not, and sort of leaving the fans out and cutting them out to some degree. And when the league introduced this in-season tournament, I think that this is the exact result that they wanted, that some other media company was going to get involved and invest into that specific product. So, we'll see how all of that plays out. But the annual revenue breakup from each media, or from each coverage provider, is as follows. Disney paying $2.6 billion per year. NBC paying $2.5 billion. Like I mentioned, Amazon $1.8 billion, which makes a grand total around $7 billion as a whole. Now, finals are exclusively going to be streamed on ESPN and ABC per usual there. This new deal is going to kick off for the 2025-26 season and is going to last through 2037. It does notably not include Turner Sports and TNT. And to me, this didn't come as a huge surprise. It's been not a very well-kept secret that Turner did not seem like they were going to be able to afford to stay in the race here with the NBA moving forward, which, of course, is a little bit of a sore subject for a lot of basketball fans, considering the fact that inside the NBA, with that entire crew, Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, and Charles Barkley, has been one of the most popular sports broadcasts across all sports, at least in America. And there is definitely a question mark surrounding what the future looks like for them. Seems like this is going to be the last season that we see this group of four incredibly entertaining basketball minds together on one broadcast, and not sure where it's going to go from here. Ernie Johnson said that he, or at least it's been reported, that he is expected to stay with Turner Sports and that he's not going anywhere. Charles Barkley is going to be a free agent. He's talked before on multiple occasions about the fact that he sees himself retiring in the coming years. We'll see whether or not he does stick to that plan. I mean, he would make a lot of money, and everybody on this crew would make a lot of money if they did, if they wanted to continue broadcasting and, being a part of a media company. But, Barkley is probably my favorite of the group. He is just so incredibly funny, and it was interesting to me when he stepped in for the booth during the Stanley Cup Finals, which were aired on ESPN. So Barkley, basically acting as if he was a free agent, he just kind of hopped in briefly there with Steve Levy, PK Subban, and Mark Messier, and he pretty openly talked about how he had no idea what was really going on in the game and in hockey in general, but he kind of owned it and wasn't trying to be a fake expert. He was just incredibly funny, and his energy is extremely infectious, and he makes everybody laugh. It's going to be a real shame if he ends up calling it quits after this upcoming year. But like I mentioned, Kenny Smith and Shaq are both going to make a ton of money as well if they want to continue going along in this right. Now, what does it mean for NBA fans? Again, like I mentioned, Barkley did have the quote about the fact that the NBA is just leaning more towards making as much money as possible, as much as possible. And we saw with the NFL to some degree as well, the way that they have shipped off their Thursday night football games to Amazon. And last year we saw the first ever Peacock game, exclusively streamed on Peacock. And it's just kind of what the future of sports broadcasting is going to be. And it definitely does cut out a large portion of their audience. Now, the streaming records for that Peacock football game between the Dolphins and Chiefs was incredibly high. So they're going to continue to have success is the thing, which is why it's going to continue to go in this direction. But it is a little bit of a shame that I think I saw some graphic on Twitter the other day where it added up all of the different prices of the different streaming services that it takes to be able to watch every football game. And, we're looking at, I think it was $135 was the number that was given up, and that's probably something like a monthly cost there. So again, it's unfortunate the way that this is all unraveling, but again, I think that they're having success doing it up to this point, and there's no turning back from here. So again, a little bit unfortunate, but not really much you can do about that. But as for what this means in terms of, the league itself and the overall way that it is going to continue to operate for years to come, I would say that ultimately, this is not to be too much expected that, they end up getting all of this money. We're going to see, I would have to imagine, another massive salary cap jump in some point in the next few years, which is going to, it's just a consistent theme. We see it with basketball and the NBA. I would argue we see it in the NFL as well, that, these elite money-making leagues are just going to continue to grow and grow. And that's where, when you look at the conversations around contract negotiations, we have all of these record-breaking deals essentially coming out on a yearly basis. And that's why Jaylen Brown became the highest paid player in NBA history last year, becoming the first $300 million player. And everybody said, or I wouldn't say everybody, but there was a large portion of NBA fans that said he was overpaid there. But By the time that contract expires, he is probably going to be outside of the top 10 highest paid players. And then in the NFL, we look at Jared Goff getting $50 million. Now, that one, I can't say is a no-doubter, a great move to make, but that's just what the market is. You know, Patrick Mahomes signed his $500 million deal years ago, and now he is, you know, he's a little bit underpaid. You can definitely make the argument when you look at some of the money that's been thrown around for a lot of these other, I wouldn't even say middling, you know, because you have the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows in that conversation as well, which are the closest competition to Mahomes. But when you see all of these other contracts that are being thrown out there, that's why, you know, it benefits to, if you're in these leagues, spend your money early, because contracts are only going to continue to get more expensive, and that is just the way that this all sort of goes. And again, $76 billion in, you know, media revenue just from these media companies, you know, per year. It's just going to continue to be, you know, a more and more lucrative organization, and they're going to have more money than they know what to do with it. So it'll be interesting to see how that all continues to develop as time goes on here. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. But we're going to be switching gears here to some MLB conversations. And yesterday we saw another unbelievable start from the rookie phenom Paul Skeens, as he pitched seven hitless innings, and he was able to, you know, just absolutely dismantle this Brewers lineup. And it got to a point where it seemed like he was primed to try and make history here, and instead he ended up getting pulled after that seventh inning, which sparked all types of controversy. And we are going to be diving into whether or not that was the right decision for Pittsburgh, and additionally the fact that he was rewarded for that performance and the performance that he's put out on the season as a whole with being named the All-Star starter for the National League in next week's All-Star game. So we're going to be diving into that. First, we have to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.